Astartes in Space Marine 2, versatility is a highly sought after trait of any squad member. Being able to tackle multiple jobs and switch between them at a moment's notice is a surefire way to guarantee the success of your operation. When your team needs a fixer, look no further than the Vanguard. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and in this video, we'll showcase a max level, max difficulty Vanguard build that seamlessly fits into any team composition. As a jack of all trades, the Vanguard is right at home initiating, disrupting, and providing valuable support, all while remaining surprisingly hard to kill. In addition, their class ability, the Grapnel launcher, allows them to quickly relocate when newer, high-priority situations arise. While there are quite a few ways to build the Vanguard, for this video we'll be focusing on the Initiation Disruptor playstyle. This build centers around frequent grapnel use to jump into heavy packs of enemies, and the infamous Melter Rifle to shred everything at close range. If you checked out our build guide for the tactical, having the Melter Rifle leveled lets you double dip in both classes, perfect for players just starting out, so let's get into it. No matter what you pick, the Vanguard automatically comes with 50% faster contested health regen. This allows them to bounce back from damage quicker than other classes, a welcome benefit seeing as you'll be diving into danger more often than not. Now moving into perks, for column 1, we're taking Melee Mastery. Diving into a group to focus on a major is very common, and using melee in these instances saves ammo you don't need to spend. Moving target is okay if you find yourself in battles with lots of ranged enemies such as Chaos, but the duration is short and it takes quite a while to even build up. In the second column, Conviction is the choice. For this build, we use the Blood of Voss's combat knife, which is a balanced type melee weapon. If your parry timing is good, you won't need Duelist, but if you do find yourself needing a bit of help, it greatly increases the parry window. That being said, the extra defense of Conviction is hard to pass up in any build. Next, in column 3, we picked up Honed Reaction to double the perfect dodge window when your health is below 50%. It's another excellent defensive perk that can open up extra gunstrike opportunities that you normally may not have had. Also, the other two simply don't provide enough value. In column 4, the easiest choice of the entire perk tree is Inner Fire. It's one of the single best team perks in the game because it allows anyone to generate 15% ability charges off execution. Not only does it work on any enemy, it also has no cooldown. Insane. Moving into gear perks, Shockwave is our pick in column 5. This is because the entire build is centered around frequent use of Grapnel launcher, and a lot of times you'll be diving into groups that contain a ton of trash mobs. If you find yourself diving in only to be shot at by a bunch of ranged enemies, then Restless Fortitude would be something to consider, but in most cases, you'll get more mileage out of the small burst of AoE damage when using the Grapnel to initiate. In column 6, Tip of the Spear turns your Grapnel into an AoE debuff. Not only does it cause any enemy hit to take 15% more range damage, it combos with the previous perk, Shockwave, to debuff everything in a 5-meter radius. This is the perfect 1-2 punch with the Melter Rifle blast, and especially strong against some of the tougher enemies. The final gear perk in column 7 has two options. With Inner Fire proccing all the time, it's hard to make the most of Grim Determination, so instead, we lean into Combat Readiness so we can make sure we almost always have our Grapnel available. If you wanted to go more melee focused, you'd trade Inner Fire in column 4 with Melee Champion, but even then, it's not really worth losing Inner Fire for the team. Finally, the signature perks. Tactical Prowess is excellent because it lets you zip across the battlefield to execute a vulnerable enemy at no cost. A wonderful relocation tool that when combined with Shockwave turns into a zero-cost AoE. If you need a little bit more durability or find that you always have Grapnel available due to Inner Fire and Combat Readiness, then Emperor's Blessing will give you a cheat death mechanic on a relatively low 180-second cooldown. While not quite as strong as the Sniper's variant, it still keeps you alive and lets you play a little more reckless. It also allows you to be a solid candidate as the Gene Seed carrier. This setup gives the Vanguard a well-rounded kit that allows them to zip around the battlefield to where they're needed most. When they obtain Inner Fire at level 21, your squad will feel the impact almost immediately of abilities recharging faster when executing. Now let's check out the weapons. Since this build focuses on disruption and ad clear, we choose the Melter Rifle. For the sub-variant, we make sure to pick the Ophelian Liberation with a larger magazine and more ammo reserves. We sacrifice a small amount of damage, 1 point to be exact, and 3 range, but this version ensures we have the extra ammo needed to keep the offense rolling. Since we are always diving in close range, less of an issue. To bolster our playstyle, these are the weapon perks we choose. The first perk is Extended Magazine, which does what it says, adds ammo to the magazine. When combined with another Extended Magazine for our 5th perk, it rounds us up to 11 shots total with our chosen melt variant. This greatly boosts your sustained ad clear and interrupt potential. The second perk, Magazine Restoration, generates an entire magazine's worth of ammo out of thin air when health goes below 30%. This is handy because the melter rifle doesn't come with a lot of ammo, and on the harder difficulties, your low armor can get stripped pretty quickly. This ends up being a case of offense being granted when defense is low. If you are running Conviction for reduced damage taken when armor is depleted, it's more likely that you can hit sub 30% and fight your way out with the extra ammo. Next, we get Great Might in the 3rd slot. This gives the Melta 10% additional damage against Terminus enemies, basically named enemies with a health bar. After that, for our 4th pick, we take Divine Might. This is an all-around 10% damage boost. The 5th perk is the aforementioned second instance of Extended Magazine. The benefit of having a few more total rounds in the magazine cannot be understated here. If you aren't using the Ophelian Liberation with increased ammo capacity, then your magazine size will cap out at 11 with both perks. From here, we move down to Fast Reload for number 6. The Melter Rifle's reload is notoriously slow, so even a small boost helps. The reason we move down to the bottom is because we won't be reloading very often, so picking first shot feels like a waste. Now that we're on the bottom row, the 7th perk is Reloading Immunity. This prevents us from being knocked back while reloading and also opens up a choice for the final perk. When choosing the 8th and final perk, you have to decide between reducing the armor regen delay with fast regeneration in the 3rd column, or picking Elusive Range for the 3-meter range increase that lasts 5 seconds after a perfect dodge. We pick fast regeneration because we are often killing tons of trash mobs at once, and every 2 kills we reduce the armor regen delay by 1 second, and that adds up. There is a little room for variance, but unfortunately the Melter Rifle only gets 8 total mastery points to spend. The setup we went with has given us great results, but feel free to experiment. For the bolt pistol, our secondary, we utilize our standard setup. The variant of choice is Ophelian Liberation Alpha, and we go entirely top tree except for our final perk, Extended Magazine. It's a well-rounded selection of perks which gives you a bit of extra damage if you can snag some headshots when using your pistol. Melee weapon can go either way, but we prefer the combat knife. This is because our choice, Blood of Vossas, has 8+ damage and an excellent speed rating, while also maintaining the ability to parry. Of course, depending on your playstyle, you could pick any option or even look into chainswords, but the Melter Rifle does most of the up-close work for us. Melee is our backup. For our combat knife perks, we use a familiar setup. We start on the top tree for Armored Strength because it's relatively easy to get your armor back to 2 full pips. Combine that with 2 Perpetual Strength perks at selection 3 and 4, and you are already at 20% melee damage. We won't be sticking around in melee long enough to worry about AoE, but for our second perk, Sharp Impacts is in the path of the direction we want to be going, so it's automatic. For our 5th perk, we pick Shoulder Bash, a favorite of ours. This changes your sprinting attack into a highly effective shoulder bash, which works well as an emergency knockdown for groups of scrub enemies. Most of the time, it won't be necessary, but its speed and range make it more useful than the default sprinting attack. We take Tyrannid Slayer and Chaos Slayer to round out the build for both factions. Since we don't need the damage buff, we just skip Reeling Blow and pick up Tide of Battle. So let's talk about how to play, or better yet, let's focus on how the Vanguard can help maximize the team's chance of success. As we've previously talked about, the Vanguard is great at being where they need to be, but that hinges on your overall awareness as a player and making the right decision quickly. Your Grapnel launcher allows you to get to places quickly, some of which are out of reach of other classes, including the Assault. Learning areas and shortcuts is a key element of playing Vanguard at a high level. However, perhaps the most important piece of advice we can give is to always keep moving, always stay active. With constant offense, you can quickly get large groups of enemies into an execution-ready state that grants your team both defensive execution opportunities and more inner fire procs for a steady feed of ability recharge. Grapnel into groups, unload the Melta to shred trash mobs and disrupt stronger enemies, execute, parry, and perfect dodge for active defense on the fly. The Melta Vanguard never stops moving. So now you're prepared to shred with our Day 1 Vanguard Melta Disruptor Guide. Though things may change after launch, with over 300 hours of gameplay across preview and early access, we are confident that this build can tackle the toughest content the game currently has to offer. Our team has been working tirelessly to bring you guys Day 1 builds of every class, so if you like our work and you want to support the channel, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up, and consider subscribing. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.